How's it going, future Netrunners? As we all know, Cyberpunk 2077 can't come soon enough, and even though it'll be out in less than a year on April 20th, 2020, it still feels so far away. Thankfully though, news about the game is being released at an incredible rate, and with the tabletop game Cyberpunk Red serving as a sequel to Cyberpunk 2020 and a prequel to Cyberpunk 2077, it has revealed a large amount of details that'll be important for 2077's world building and the story. Now before we go head first into all the new info released from Cyberpunk Red, let's first take a quick look into Cyberpunk 2020 and catch everyone up as fast as possible. In Cyberpunk 2020, there is a lack of government regulation, and instead mostly corporations are calling the shots, and are even going as far to oppress people who aren't in agreement. These corporations have grown so powerful that they have become the new world overlords, and the government that still does exist doesn't try and get in the way of them. Mike Pondsmith, the creator of the tabletop game, and one of the grandfathers of the cyberpunk genre, had this to say about Cyberpunk 2020. The 2020 world is a fusion of many types and elements of the overall genre, and it's about a combination of technology gone wrong, but being used by people in novel ways up against large mega corporations, powerful people, and powerful forces, governments, etc. that are all conspiring to keep people oppressed and stomped on. This all sounds like a terrible place to live in, but makes for an exciting and interesting locale, and a universe to delve further into. The lack of government has not only allowed corporations to rise to power, but in doing so, they began to fight with each other to see who held the most power, in an event called the Fourth Corporate War. Cyberpunk Red takes place in 2045, just after this event in which a long, violent, and bloody conflict took place between Aquacorp Sino and OTEC, and then later this was escalated to even greater heights by Militech and Araska. Smaller companies then began to align themselves with one of these two corporations. Once sides were chosen, an all-out planet-wide war raged on, where these megacorporations broke international laws and began using armies from the private sector to try and wipe out people on the opposing side. This war was big and dirty enough though, that civilians also began to get wrapped up in the crossfire. This led to Johhny Silverhand and Morgan Blackhand leading an attack on the Araska headquarters in Night City. During this raid, a small nuclear bomb detonated and destroyed most of Night City, along with more than 500,000 people. The bomb was supplied by Militech, but the president decided to blame Araska anyway, and nationalized Militech. Once Militech received this backing, along with the help of other national armies, the war was brought to an end. After the war, a new era was born and rushed in, known as the Time of Red. This is where our Cyberpunk 2077 prequel, Cyberpunk Red, gets its name from. After the corporate war, a red pale hangs over the skies worldwide from the destruction and radiation. However, this radiation doesn't harm most people due to many of them having radiation filters installed in their bodies. Now that major cities are largely in ruins, abandoned towns and countryside settlements are seeing the return of life. While the settlements and towns are mostly safe, the areas between these locations are filled with bandits and raiders, meaning that if you wanted to live in these areas, you would have to align yourself with armed nomad caravans. Until 2030, when massive reconstruction projects began taking place worldwide to rebuild these leveled cities. The plan was to build mega buildings that were safe and could house an incredible amount of people and help alleviate the overcrowding in city outskirts. In 2045, the first mega building was erected, and with it being so large and having everything one would need, it began to form its own micro-society. V's apartment in 2077 is in one of these massive structures. With mega buildings finally being built and becoming a place where people can live, construction begins on Night City's N-Cart subway system to transform it into a monorail configuration. This has already shown hints to have been completed in 2077 from the demo released. Along with new transportation and housing, a new virtual infrastructure was needed. The net from Cyberpunk 2020 was wiped out during the Fourth Corporate War. The net had allowed people to travel the world and even into space, but now netrunners had to physically jack into local networks if they wanted access. In the Time of Red, netrunners have to own fancy VR goggles called cyberdecks if they want to jack into these localized networks. However, if netrunners or people want to access the citywide networks called data pools, they will have to use a data term or a device called an agent. Data pools in this world are basically the internet, but instead of being global, it's localized to a city. Data pools are also home to pop media, which is news and entertainment programming created by independent people, and groups not aligned with any of the megacorps. While this people-driven programming is good in allowing unbiased information to be made available, it has also allowed an ungodly amount of trash to fill up pop media. In Cyberpunk 2077, we've already seen V jack into a Maelstrom gang network, allowing her access to the entire hideout. Also in 2077, your primary communication device will be the previously mentioned agent, which comes in 3 forms: basic, expensive, and luxury. However, there may be some pretty interesting side missions surrounding these devices, as they can be reprogrammed to act like a surrogate love, and to complement cybernetic enhancements to benefit or pleasure the user. Now that you know what the worlds look like both in terms of its physical and virtual state, you're probably wondering what it's like to live in that world. During the time of Red, daily life is very hard and difficult. Wars will constantly break out over fresh food, leading most people to consume kibble and other synthetic foods. In 2077, we've already seen that the city seems to be much more stable, and that eating real and fresh food is easier to come by. It still isn't confirmed yet in the game if the food will be a necessity for hunger, or if it'll just be another method of getting back health, similar to that in The Witcher 3. Public transportation during the time of Red largely consisted of good old fuel-burning cars. As while the flying types do exist, they are incredibly expensive and hard to drive, unless you're cybered up appropriately. Unfortunately, this will be true in 2077 as well, and it's already been confirmed that we the player won't be able to control any flying cars in our time with the game. Thankfully though, while cybercars are off the table, cyberbikes certainly aren't, and they are heavily present in the game. In the demo that was shown off behind closed doors at E3 2019, journalists got a glimpse of V zipping around in the Yaiba Kusanagi cyberbike. The other vehicles heavily talked about in the game is the F-152 Aragiro, a one-man style helicopter, and the McDonald Douglas AV-4, which is basically a science fiction jet car and can reach speeds up to 350 miles per hour. We've seen this in last year's demo, as the militarized EMT team had used it for transportation. Another very cool thing we learned about from this tabletop game that will have relevance in Cyberpunk 2077 is the clothing options and abilities. Depending on how much the player is willing to spend, you'll find a wide variety of clothing visually, but also functionally, as clothing will have accessories such as built-in chargers, the ability to adjust the temperature, change colors and textures at will, and even harden into a bodysuit for tank-like playstyles, as well as entirely cloaked players, allowing you to invade corporations as a stealthy ninja and live out your Ghost in the Shell fantasy. Now that you better know about the world of Cyberpunk, you're probably still wondering about Silverhand and Blackhand. From what has been said and shown so far, we do know that Johhny Silverhand will have some kind of holographic or cybernetic presence throughout most of the game.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
As a chip in your head has a digital download of Johhny Silverhand's mind. Looking back at Cyberpunk Red, there are constant rumors that Johnny's body was found under the wreckage in Night City in a body bank. So perhaps in 2077, there will be a quest revolved around finding and extracting his body. Blackhand, on the other hand, may very well be alive, as based on Cyberpunk Red, there are heavy rumors that he is covertly working for President Kruse and the US government. So I'm sure if Blackhand is alive, then he'll make a big appearance in 2077 at some point, and the relationship the player has with him will hopefully vary, as you can pick Blackhand to be your character's role model in the game. Alright guys, well that wraps up this news update in Cyberpunk 2077, and everything that Cyberpunk Red hints at story, character, and gameplay wise. The story sounds amazing, and the world building is next level. Here's hoping it gets fully utilized in the game once it comes out, but it is CD Projekt Red, so I'm sure I won't have to worry about any of that. The extra info about the gameplay possibilities in relation to clothing, and the character info about Johhny Silverhand and Morgan Blackhand was also amazing to learn. But enough of how I feel and what I think. I want to know what you all think as well. What bit of info excites you most? And what do you think Blackhand's role will be in the game? If you'd like to continue discussing anything Cyberpunk related or otherwise, as well as stay up to date on my content, then go and follow my Twitter account linked below. And if you want awesome perks such as behind the scenes of my videos, involvement in the creation progress, being mentioned in the credits such as seen now, and much more, then go and check out my Patreon below as well, and find a tier that fits you best. With that said, let's chat down in the comments, and if you like this video and you want to see more like it, be sure to leave a like, share the video, and hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you all on the next Shepard Gaming video. Keyless Lie.